good evening, everybody. And first, we might start with Mr. Ray. If you can unmute, should be able to now.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you loud and clear. So what's been going on with your side of things, Ray?
No, nothing much. I no longer have a driving license, not because I've been drinking, but because of bad eyesight.
Oh, okay.
I think the optician was a drummer too.
That's right, is it?
No, I've got no peripheral vision anymore, and I've got macular degeneration, which makes everything blurry.
Oh, bugger.
But the computer comes up big when you increase the zoom, and I know where all the notes are on the guitar, so any music I get off online and I can make that bigger so I can read the music. So it's all good. Not as blind as Stevie Wonder, but I can manage.
Yeah. Well, you know the running joke, don't you, with Stevie Wonder? Have you seen what he got for Christmas this year?
He didn't.
Yeah, that's right. No one's seen it yet. So I'll just mute you, Ray, and we'll check in with Ian and see how things are going with him. Ian, you should be able to unmute your mic now.
I can. You got me?
Yay! How are you, mate? I've been stalking you on. Yeah. I've been stalking you on Facebook lately, so
yep.
I've seen exactly what you've been up to.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Playing all those bass riffs.
A little bit of riding,
left hand, is that right? Excellent.
Yeah. yeah. So it's going good. It's just another day down here. Yeah. I haven't had much chance to practice since the 24th or play because I've had the kids here. And they take up part of my studio, so I can't use that. So yeah. But apart from that, I'm back into it back playing on Sunday. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Whereabouts?
Rosebud RSL.
Okay. So just a general gig.
Rosebud RSL. Yeah.
Normal stuff.
Yeah, it's just a walk-in. One of the guys I play with, he sort of says, "Okay, we'll do such and such a number," and yeah, do you know it? Yes, no, play it anyway.
Thanks for that catch up there.
Yeah.
I'll mute your microphone there, and I'll ask Blossom to let us know what she's been up to. That's another person that I've stalked on Facebook as well to see what they're up to. How are you, Blossom?
Hello, Andrew. And everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Happy New Year.
Finally got everything to work. How's everybody? That you're well?
Yeah, everybody's going well. We're just doing our catch up with everybody, see how the new year has started for everybody.
Good. New Year has been good. Yeah, I haven't been on here since, I think, August or September of the year before last.
Yeah, you've ditched us for a couple of months, but you've been busy, which is okay.
Yes, well, the more accurate word is I've been avoiding Studio One.
Oh, right. Depending on how much.
Broadcaster Pro 2.
Yes, so we'll be getting a little bit more onto that a bit later. You've asked a great question there. So
busy live streaming to Insight Timer meditation app.
Excellent.
So I've been doing that since June and July, and then I took a few months off. And then I went back in November and did about three live streams a week. And I'm taking 2 weeks break again.
Nice.
And we'll probably go back to do that around the 14th of January.
Right, okay.
That has been going very well. Sometimes I get over 200 audience numbers tuning in from all over the world. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been life changing. Doing what I really love to do. So playing the piano.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a route that I have never thought of ever doing.
Right.
Because I stopped playing the piano for 37 years, and never thought I would go back to playing piano again. So, yeah, talking about life calling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think
Yeah, you never
the
know.
famous John Lennon once said, you know, life happens while you're busy making plans.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's
right.
exactly what it is. So,
That's right. I've been avoiding it, you know.
yeah, as I mentioned before, you did ask a question, and I believe that you have to go in about half an hour. So I'll hopefully try and get to yours. I'll do your question first.
Oh, thank you.
So that way it helped you out before you go and leave us again. So anyway, I'm
thank you
going to
very
ask you, thank you for the catch up. I'll mute your mic and we'll move on to Peter. And I'll ask you to unmute, Peter. Find out what's been going on. It looks like your beard has grown since last time.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you now.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, I normally have it tied up.
Oh, is that why?
Yes.
I thought, who's this big, bad, mean bikie joining us tonight?
I've actually got a bikie shirt on. It's Rick's Garage up here.
Oh,
That's
okay.
good. Yeah.
Nice. So what's been happening in your world?
Not much. Got a duo thing now happening, and was chasing up a couple of gigs today and got 4 bookings, so that's something. So that's a good start. Apart from
Excellent.
that, just mixing and stuff. I've had not really issues, but I just haven't been happy with this computer. So I've just sorted some new sort of gear to rev it up quite a bit, the old desktop, and that'll happen probably next week. So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And apart from that, everything was just flowing.
Excellent, nice. So I've got a question from you as well to answer. Thank you for submitting that. So if anyone doesn't know already, that the users group on Facebook has actually got a couple of community chats there now. One is called just a general chit chat. So you can go in there and, you know, let us know what's been going on, etc. Tell any jokes, Ray, about drummers. You can do that in that chat if you'd like. And there's also one called the e-meeting questions. So if you want to submit those, you know, anytime through the month before the next meeting, I'll pick them up and, yeah, go through them in the meeting. You know, as I said, as some nice content to sort of move on with. So thanks, Peter. So I'll just ask Carolyn to unmute there now, if she's there.
Well, it's been a while. I've been very, very busy. We're releasing about 1 song a month. We're recording at home still. And I've been loading up my new computer because the other one I had to keep logging in and logging out, and it was getting very desperate. So we've got a new computer, a PC this time, not a tinny old laptop from 2015.
Right.
So I feel like I've achieved a lot, but I'm too scared to turn on my Studio 68C because I just don't know what will happen. Every other program's worked out well, but I'm not sure how this one will, so I'm petrified. And
right.
I've saved all my songs to 2 different terabyte things, and my songs, my husband's songs, and the singer's songs. But yeah, it's very unnerving. But anyway, I've got Zoom on the new computer about 2 seconds before the meeting started, so that's pretty good. And so far, so good.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And yeah, I do apologise about the muting and unmuting thing. It just makes for a
Doesn't worry me at all. No,
smoother
fine.
Zoom meeting. Especially sometimes you have people come in and there's background noise and whatever else. It's just a lot easier. So yeah, Zach has said in the chat that he hasn't been doing much in the past month, but hoping to get into doing more this year. He's actually asked a great question in our question chat. I was asking people to submit questions that they may have as far as Studio One's concerned in our chat on Facebook. But if you're not part of that, I'm not sure if Carolyn actually is on that group. I don't know. I might. Oh, you are? Okay. So It doesn't mean that you can't ask questions tonight, but if you do want to ask something or, you know, mention something, just please give me a raise up or, you know, dance. Hey, it looks like Peter's there. Let's ask him to unmute and see if...
Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Yeah, don't know what's going on in my system tonight. I can't unmute. I can't start video yet. I've just checked my video. I know my camera's working. I've checked all that through the Zoom stuff, and I got no idea.
So what are you using now? Your phone?
I'm on my phone now, so that'll have to do tonight.
So anything to catch up on?
Oh, look, it's yeah, there wasn't much going on out down in this neck of the woods, sort of Christmas, New Year. Very few gigs on. A lot of people that normally would always do a New Year's Eve gig didn't do anything this year, which was a bit worrying. But there are but there are things going on. We're getting ready. I've got a gig this weekend to do with a lady touring from Nashville. I've got to do a show with her. Then I've got about a week, and then I get basically into festival mode. I've been corresponding actually with Andrew Farris.
Nice.
And I'm doing a couple of shows with him. Yeah, so that'll be interesting.
Nice guy.
Actually, indirectly through Laurie Minson, who's one of our members who plays in Andrew's band. We're going to do a thing during the festival with him. So, we're just working out the logistics of all of that. I think I've told you about the gentleman who's he's going to join our meetings at some probably later in the year. He's just started off learning to play drums in the last 2 years after he had a major accident and lost a leg, and he has a very trick prosthesis which he can control from his phone. And he's learning to play drums, which you'll be very pleased to hear.
Oh, wow.
And
nice.
Really, he's loving it. He's on this one. I said, well, he can, he's got a little mixer, and I'm just helping him get, all his drums into that so we can start doing some recording this year with him. So that's been a lot of fun. He's not a tech guy by any means, but he said, this is just so much fun. He said, I really wish I'd done this a long time ago. So, yeah, so that's been good. That's been very enjoyable to see his, get those aha moments and stuff. And
yeah.
But he's playing well. He's getting taught by a local guy who's a good teacher, and he's a good client. And I'm helping him get all this going, and so that's a lot of fun. And then of course we're into the festival before much longer, and that's for me. That's about 10 days. So busy stuff. Lots of stuff. That's about it for me at the moment. Oh, apart from doing some FaceTime with JD in California, getting his, because they're starting to record now.
Nice.
I've got a very hot drummer doing the drum parts for their new songs, and the drummer he's one of these international guys, works with people like Newey Malmsteen and Joe Satriani and all the hot players. He's doing their drum tracks, and they're a medley style of band, but he's got PreSonus gear and Studio One set up in his garage now, and we're helping him get all that working so he can. His guitar player's writing a lot of the stuff, and he's a very good player. And so my friend JD, who's one of our members, he's a bass player, and he's going to do the bass tracks for it. So we. It's getting him used to Studio One, how to get his tracks down, how to send them off to his guitar player so they can work on the songs and that sort of stuff. So, it's been good fun.
Oh, nice. So we're going to move on because Blossom is only here for the next 10 or 15 minutes. And so what I'm going to do is get to the questions. A couple of people have put their questions up, which is very cool. I even got a couple today, which those who sent me them today, that's fine. I don't really mind as long as I can get time to do them before the meeting starts. And even if it's, send me any questions in the chat here, obviously. But again, wave your hands around if there's any other questions that may come up. There is a little bit of room for discussion here as well on one of these questions. So I'm going to skip right down to Blossom's first, which Blossom is currently doing some live streaming, and she plays piano and live streams to an app. And she asks, how can she connect her Presonus Studio 68C interface, and she has a Rodecaster Pro 2 that she's using as well. She says, I have a Pro Balanced cable, 1/4 inch TRS the same, and I plan to record my digital piano directly to the computer and not using an SSD card on the Rodecaster. So I believe you can record locally on the podcaster, is that right, Blossom? I'll unmute you as well there so we can talk to each other. And so, yeah, I believe that the Rodecaster has onboard recording, unlike some of the Presonus mixes that we've got, Studio Live, 32, 24, all the rest of them, even the rack stuff, some of them can record stereo audio only. But it's not hard to take a little laptop out and have capture running to record multi-track as well. But yeah, so is that right? Just wanted to check. Is that right, Blossom?
Well, it's a brand new computer, and I haven't actually hooked up my audio interface to it. I used to use it before I had the Rodecaster Pro 2.
Yeah.
So this time I haven't hooked that up yet. So I've never recorded with this setup yet.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go through, I actually answered the question here. And so please let me know if something doesn't make any sense. We actually, my partner's business, Other Music, we actually sell Rode quite a lot. And so there's a lot of teachers and stuff that use Rode. So I'm quite up with a lot of the podcaster stuff. And the Rodecaster Pro 2, which is the one I believe Blossom has, is actually a little bit like the Presonus Revelator interfaces. They have multiple USB simultaneous outputs. And so what I'm trying to say there is that it's probably a lot more powerful interface than even your Studio 68C yet, to be honest.
Yeah, I am using it for my live stream.
Yeah. So it's very, very powerful. So you can actually have up to 3 interfaces running all at once, which is just absolutely amazing. So you can have multiple computers plugged in and do whatever else. So, you know, what you can do then, if your workflow, if this is the way you would like to go, you could use your Rodecaster as the interface into Studio One and bypass your Studio 68C altogether. You know, if that's the one that you're using for your, you know, your broadcasts and stuff, to record it, you can actually just send, you know, not use your interface at all. But if you wanted to use the interface and have that as a dedicated Studio One interface, your 68C I'm talking about, is that you could use a 1/4 inch TRS to Y left and right cables. So this is the cable here. So I didn't know how to share. I'll work it out, but I'll put it up on the camera here.
Oh, need a dual on the.
Yeah, so you can see that they've got, what's the best way? So single output, like a headphone jack, but then it's got left and right.
Yep.
Okay, so what you would do then is just connect that to the first 1 and 2 inputs on your audio interface. And then in Studio One, you would select those 2 and just record in stereo. And obviously, you know, if you need help later on, I can talk you through all that, which isn't a problem. But that's just one way of doing it. So on the back of your Rodecaster Pro, you've got 4 separate headphone outputs. So you can do a mix for each one of those. So what you would do is send your piano through to that. okay, using that cable in particular. Okay, so that's using the headphone jacks. But at the same time, if you don't have any monitor speakers plugged into the Rodecaster, you can also use those two outputs on the back, the left and right, just with normal instrument cables, and run those straight into your Studio 68C. So is that making sense? So that you can actually send the whole output out.
Kind of.
So I think what's happening is getting confused because that Rodecaster Pro is an audio interface on its own. And the way I would do it was just, I would completely ditch the 68 and just use the Rodecaster Pro.
Yeah, the reason I want to use the 68C is because I've got someone has helped me to put a mastering template on the 68C.
Ah, right, yeah.
So I don't have to adjust anything. So would that be a easier way to go, or just stick to Rodecaster Pro?
Well, what it allows you to do is you can use multiple interfaces. Like here in the studio, I've got so many bloody computers now plugged into different things, but I have my Mac Mini, which is dedicated to Studio One for the studio here, and I have, which one is it? I've got the 2626 Thunderbolt, and that's my interface for that. Now, if you actually, add up all the mixers and stuff I've got here, I've got like maybe 12 to 15 audio interfaces that could run different things all at once, or you could use a mixer and run everything into there. I like to be a little bit separate in my workflow, but for you, I reckon, having that 68C there might confuse things unless you're using Studio One as a dedicated audio recorder. So you just run things out of your Rodecaster, run everything you want to record into your 68C, and just have a separate computer recording the result. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I might have to get back to you about a few things.
Yeah. So the question I had as well is, I wonder, with the Rodecaster having multiple interfaces, I'd be very interested to know if Studio One sees them a bit like the Revelator interface as separate interfaces. That would be very interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of ways of recording, and obviously, a lot of technical audio engineers will say, oh, don't record out of the headphone output. It's basically just an output. Sometimes they're a little bit overpowered because they're sending to headphones and things like that. So it's not going to really matter as long as you get your gain staging right. And by using the plugs instead of XLR 3-pin, the plugs actually bypass the preamp. So you're not actually, amping up something that's already amped, if that makes sense. It just runs flat. And you should be able to just adjust the front just to get a little bit of trim on it to make sure it's coming through nice and hot. So that way the recording comes out nicely, especially with piano. If you're playing quite loud, make sure when you're testing your interface and, the levels and things, make sure you test it while you're banging on it pretty loud. And then test it to make sure that the quiet notes are coming out as well. But as I said, I can help you with that stuff with no problem. But as far as your question concerned, I would just use the Rodecaster Pro too, to be honest.
Okay, so I won't rush into buying the cables because this is what I've got.
Okay.
Not the dual, so I won't rush into getting that. I'll see
so
what
there's
I can
nothing
do with the Rodecaster.
With that cable, there's nothing stopping you recording a mono signal, which will probably be enough anyway. But as far as Ian would know this as well, as far as keyboards are concerned, running things in stereo is always a lot better with anything keys or piano and stuff like that, just to get a nice spread, especially with...
Yeah, sorry. I've got the stereo going from the piano to Rodecaster Pro. I've got the dual
Yeah.
stereo there, but yeah, I haven't hooked up the 68C. Anyway, thank you very much, Andrew.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to
hold
make
you
sure
up.
your question got answered before you have to leave us all again. Please don't leave us all for another 6 months. We'll hopefully see you.
I'll tell you,
see you back again.
I've been avoiding all this gain and noise gate stuff. It's just too much for me. I will have to learn it one day, but
Yeah.
until then, I'm avoiding it.
No problem. Look, if you have to get going, I hope that we can speak soon and we'll get this all sorted for you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's okay.
Yeah,
and
happy
Carolyn,
New Year, everyone.
yeah, you too. And Carolyn, I have seen your question as well, so if you can hang around, we'll probably get to that very shortly. That's actually a really good question, which is very cool. So Blossom has been sorted. Right. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to go back up to the very first question, which was from Mr. Peter Piddington. Hello again, Mr. Beard. You should be in a ZZ Top tribute band or something. All right, so I've asked you to unmute so that we can have a bit of a chat here. And as I said, please, people, give me a wave or a chat question mark if you want to ask something. Right, Peter says, hi guys, Andrew, I got into the show page and really like it. I'm really glad that you did that, Peter, because we had that discussion in our last meeting about the show page. You've decided that's the way you'd like to go, but you wanted to know if there's a way to keep a set list open at all times in the performer page as a default. And unfortunately, there isn't. You're either got that open or closed depending on what you're doing. Because I tried a few different ways of being able to keep it open, and it kind of didn't work. Every time I switched screens, on my iPad swiping across, the set list would disappear and then, you'd have to go back and down again. But, you can, however, use the up and down arrows on your computer keyboard to flick through your set, and your displayed on your performance page is the current song on the top left, and then the next song is over on to the right. So are you okay with that? Does anyone want to see what that actually looks like? Yep. Peter says, why not? So, all right. Peter Scott, that is.
The concern,
keep going.
If you bring it up and you're on performer page, it's fine. And as long as you use your space bar to stop and start or whatever, that's okay. But suddenly if you accidentally hit the arrow to go, it disappears. That sort of thing. I'm just thinking if it's in a live situation and something happened there, that's not a big deal. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that would be, quite handy to actually to be able to have a set list on a separate page even. Maybe if they have a set list page to add to the controls and sections and things like that.
Yeah, the actual layout of the page itself is excellent. That's fine. I mean, it's really workable, works really well. So it's not an issue there. It was just, that'd be my criticism. And I've got it set so it'll play one song, then automatically stop for the next one. So not a big deal. Moving the songs around in the sets is very, very good, very easy. So it was just that one thing. The other thing, which they obviously haven't done, and I think I've said this as well, once your song's in there, the track's in there, you can't adjust the volumes on it. That to me is also an issue.
Okay, so a workaround for that is to have, you've seen on the screen here as a player, this is just to have, virtual instruments as far as, using a set list item. So you can see on the left here, I've created some set list items just willy-nilly. And so what you can do is, if you bring up the mix window, okay, because there's no instruments in there yet. If I actually add something, maybe like a mojito. Okay, so if you actually use another player, or in this case, if you add backing tracks like this, so the set list item, so in other words, you would drag your, what I've done before is you would drag your backing tracks into this slot here. If you have a second player for backing tracks, what I would do is I'd have one backing track in this box and then the second one in here, so that on the fly, you can change the volume of the track here. Oh, look at that, my, my fader port is moving and it frightened me. Look at this. So if I'm moving that up and down, ooh, there we go. So is that what you mean, Peter? Like you can have a backing track here, this is your volume for that one? Or do you mean to be able to change the volume on each backing track?
On each backing track would be really good.
Yeah, so that's the workaround.
Yeah, what I've done, I've got, see your top row there.
Yeah.
I've got like 38 songs or something all across that row. And that to me was the logical way. I'm not using anything like plugins or anything like that, or instruments. It's just really playback.
So playback, yeah. You know, so you can have, with Studio One, what makes it very cool in my mind is that you can have multiple projects open. And so what I would imagine you could do too is make this show here, you could call it, I don't know, RSL Set 1. Then open up another show and go RSL Set 2, RSL Set 3 in a new show there. And then what you can do is use the home button up here, and then you can switch between them.
Okay.
So as you can see there, I'm switching between, you know, the normal song page up the top right here, if people can see it. Up right top of your screen, you can see my arrow moving there. Okay, and also too, let me move zoom out of the way. You can see now, as soon as I've double clicked on that or click hold, you'll notice that shows come up and songs. So I've got two projects open at the moment. One is a show. So you could have multiple shows set up there and yeah, just, you know, bring all your backing tracks into each one of those and then have a separate volume for each track. That's pretty much how I would do it, really. So does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm not sure whether anyone has used the show page successfully yet, but I'm just about to start.
So you do.
Go, mate.
Okay, so if we take that top row, that's where your songs go. Is that right?
Yeah. So let me get rid of this track here. So we've got player here. So you could, what I would do, wrong keyboard. So you'd say track 1, track 2. These are just playback tracks, right?
Yeah.
So what you would do is you would drag an audio file into here for your first backing track.
Yep.
And then your second backing track, you go to this block here.
Yep.
And then that way you've got separate volumes from your first track to your second. And then obviously when you drag your next one in, drag it to the next slot available over here. That way, while this one's playing, you can adjust the volume.
Yeah, no, not on the fly. You couldn't do it.
Well, do you have, this is, by the way, everybody, this is what the perform page looks like. And so this is what we were talking about before. This little down arrow here is the set list item. So you can see there. So by using your computer keyboard, you can change between each one. Okay, so you can see there hang on, let me swap this around. So on the other window, you'll find my GoPro camera, and you will see that I'm using the up and down arrows on the keyboard here to change the set list items up and down. Okay, so what they've done too, Peter, I'm not sure whether you've got this far into it just as yet, that if you have a look between each page, let me move zoom out of the way here so I can actually bloody see what I'm doing. Come on, move out of the way. Thank you. So down the bottom, you've got these little dots.
Okay, yep.
So the next page are your controls. So what you can do...
Instruments, yep.
No, they're for any of it.
Okay.
So this can even be, like if you've got this slot here and this slot here as track 1 and 2, this button could be mute on and off. Or you could set it up as this slider here could be the volume for that player 1, and this is your slot for that player 2. So at any time if you're playing, you should be able to quickly reach up to your iPad or whatever, and maybe while you're playing have this window open, so that way you can change the level really quickly as you're going.
Okay.
Yep. So in the other pages, just so people know here, you also have sections of songs that you can build. It's very cool, actually. I might have to do a video on that one. And you can also have the lyrics there. And up the top here, you'll have the parts of the song, and underneath you can even show the chords. So if I take that off there, so now we're back into the overview, and here's under control where you can say, okay, fader 1, under console here.
Right.
Track 1.
Yep.
Volume.
Got it. Okay.
All right, so add target. So now that fader will actually change the volume of track 1.
Okay, and you can do that with any number of tracks. Wouldn't matter?
No, wouldn't matter. As long, because obviously you've only got 8 knobs and 8 buttons and 8 faders.
Yeah.
You can have other ones there as well.
So let's say
now,
you've got 30 songs, 30 tracks.
Well, I wouldn't have 30. I would just have 2. Or actually, you could probably have a song in each player, yeah. As long as you would remember to mute each one.
Yeah, yeah.
That would probably work. So I think it's a workflow thing. If you get a way of working, I think an iPad would be a great idea to have next to you on a mic stand or something, so that you can quickly just turn things up and down.
Yeah, well, I was going to use laptop.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
So now you can see in my controls, that volume there controls the volume, and it's even moving my my fader port there.
Okay.
So yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. See what I've done, let's say the top row, I've done 12 songs.
Yep.
Then I've put a space, set 2, say another 12 songs, for example. And then I've color-coded over here where the titles are, so I can see just by looking at what colors they are. And if they're all running that way, then it's just simply a matter of you've got your songs in the order you're going to play them. So you start with 1, so you hit your space bar, it plays. It gets to the end, automatically stops. Hit your space bar again, and the second one starts. And that'll go through for the whole 35 songs. To me, that was the most logical way of doing it. But then you run into, obviously, the issue. You've got to have your levels set pretty close. And like what you're saying there, okay, you can adjust them on the fly. I can do that on the mixer anyway. So
well, that's right. Yeah, that's what I mean about workflow.
Yeah, so it's not a major issue, but it was just once something's in there and you go, oh, I'd like it to be 3 dB louder. It's sort of not easy to do it on this. If you're in, say, the song page, and even if you're not using your console, you can still just click on the thing and arrow drag it up and raise or lower the waveform. You can't do that on this system. So to me, that would be just a nice add-on to make it really nice and easy. And the other concern is, so if you go, okay, I've got song Z, and that's a little bit loud, so I can go into Studio One, but then you can't actually copy and drag from the show page back into Studio One.
No, that's right, because it's separated.
You know what I mean? So it's just easy way of doing things if it had it. Obviously, maybe in the future they'll do those sort of things, but at the moment,
yeah.
no.
So I've just remembered you can have different layouts for controls, so you can actually have up to 16 faders.
Yeah. Okay.
So essentially, you could have 16 songs on each one on each player.
Yeah.
And then on each control, you could have the volume
and adjust the levels. Yeah.
On each player. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can definitely do that. So you've got overview, controls, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. No, I haven't delved into the rest of that, so I must have a real good look. But yeah. But no, it's working really well. Really well. The other wasn't maybe a concern, but what I'm doing for this, because it's only a duo, I'm just using a small Yamaha mixer and just running USB into the mixer.
Yep.
And that seems to work. But I did have issues, and I thought actually I had problems with my front of house speakers, that something had happened there. It turned out it was like a crackly sort of thing, and like a distortion coming through. It would come, then it would go.
Right.
And I think I've solved it. I think it was just updating the drivers. But the interesting thing, when you go into your song up, you all go out. It's sort of weird. It gives you a main out and something else, and then headphone. That doesn't actually come up USB or anything. But it's all running pretty well, so it's good.
Yeah. Is that mixer got USB audio in it?
Yes.
Yeah, because you can always route Studio One out of your USB channels 1 and 2. And have that.
Yeah, that's
what you've done? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
In my mind, the first thing I would check would be that USB cable. Because if it's an older cable, yeah.
Yeah, but it seems to be okay. I think it was just a driver issue. And that's probably mainly it, actually. That was
okay.
The issue. Yeah, so I'm sort of there.
So yeah, thanks for submitting that. That's it's a very big talking point. And as Peter Scott has just said in the chat, maybe submit a feature request to have the ability to have a set list, maybe a window that floats on the top when you're using the show page, so it is always there. So that would probably be an interesting thing.
Again, I think live, as long as you just remember to hit your space bar and don't hit the arrows on the thing, it'll work.
Yeah, you know what happened to me the other night when I was playing, I think it was towards the end of the song, and a stick flicked out of my left hand, went up in the air, and landed straight back down on my laptop on the space bar and stopped the track. And with Rocky Oki that I do, there's words on the screen, and everyone's looking up at the screen going, why is it stuck? That's because dickhead here let a stick go and it fell back down on the keyboard and pressed stop on the backing tracks.
This shows it.
That's crazy. So speaking of Peter Scott has, bombarded me with questions which are very, very relevant to Studio One. And I think I might start with that. As I said, people, give me a wave if you've got any questions about what we're talking about here. And as I said, Carolyn, I will get to your question. Peter says, how about fixed and variable aspects of Studio One, things that can be changed destructively and non-destructively that can majorly affect your final product, the things you're making in Studio One? And Peter, it kind of, morphs into that question you had earlier as well about setting sample rates between Studio One and your interface that you're using. I think that is something that is a very destructive thing when it comes to audio. My rule of thumb at the moment, you know, speaking to people about this this kind of thing, is for some time now, probably not so much now, but before, 48 kilohertz seemed to be the sweet spot. And Presonus know this as well, because you'll probably notice a lot of their current mixes don't go past 48 kilohertz. And that is pretty much for good reason. In a studio, it does help. A lot of the time I will record in 48, but I mix in a higher bit rate so that all the plugins that I use, some of them, you know, they sound different when they've got a lot more headroom to play with. So even though the source material is still 48K, the way the plugins process those things, they need a lot more bandwidth to do that. And so things like reverb and things like that in 96, definitely you can tell the difference between that and 48. So as far as a setting in Studio One, everybody knows, I'm sure, but I'm going to share the screen once again and just show you where those particular settings are. So I just need to get out of full screen mode here so I can see. Let's hope that preferences come up. Yes, they do. So under preferences, you've got general locations, etc. Under audio setup, you've got your audio device. If Blossom was here, this is what I would tell her to do about, you know, seeing if the the Rodecaster Pro would actually come up here. So as you can see on my device system here, my playback device is the Quantum 2626, and the same as my recording device. So in Blossom's setup, I'm really wondering if that would actually show up under here as, you know, Rodecaster 1, Rodecaster 2, Rodecaster 3. And by the way, each one of those interfaces has different settings as well. So it's an absolute powerhouse of a unit. So that's there. And your device block size is something that there was a bit of myth going around that that once you changed this up and down, so for instance, recording, you would have it at a lower sample so that, you know, the latency wouldn't be as bad. And then there was this myth that it's how many samples when you were mixing that you would allow to have the audio flow through. So what I mean by that is that it's only allowing 64 samples to be recorded, so therefore the computer isn't working as hard to try and keep up with the information. It's only allowing 64 samples, which is usually enough. Usually, latency-wise, I have mine on about 128. But when you go to a higher bit rate, sometimes what happens is if you've got a lot of material recorded, if you have it at a lower block size, obviously all that information, think of it like a freeway. You've got maybe 8 or 9 lanes of trucks all merging into a space where there's a bridge and there's only 1 or 2 lanes. In this case, 2 lanes because it's stereo. So you can imagine the amount of time it'd take for all those trucks to sort of move in behind each other, to flow through that bridge and come out the other side. That bridge that I speak of is your block size. So because, let's say, you're only recording a guitar, you don't need as many samples as if you were recording, I don't know, 128 channels off a mixer, for instance. Therefore, you would have to make the sample rate a bit higher. But going back to the myth was that you would lose quality once you were playing back. You know, if you recorded at 128 and you put it back at 1024 so you could mix all the tracks, it doesn't really change the quality. That's just the way you would handle a lot of information coming in at once. So, you know, I don't know whether you guys have heard of gear sluts, or I think it's called gear gods or something stupid now. So there's a lot of people out there saying never have it up any higher than this or any lower than that. As far as block size is concerned, it's not really bothered because your sample rate is the one, you know, that I guess is the gatekeeper is holding it. So just by the way, once you know and change this, the input latency and output latency changes. So if I go to 16, my interface here, the quantum, is a very fast interface, and it'll actually go down, as you can see, 0.5 millisecond, which is just absolutely crazy. It's an awesome interface, quite cheap these days actually. So if we put that up to 256, you'll notice now that our input latency is 5.5 and output is 567. So it's only giving you 272 samples of how much output is happening. Regardless, it's the 48 kilohertz here that matters. So to answer Peter's question, one of the destructive things that you can do with your settings in Studio One is have this at a lower setting. So everything that you do will actually be governed basically by how much you set this at. So if you go down the bottom here as well, you've got a show setup, just so people know. You've also got some, this is the show that I've got open at the moment. I would leave it at 48K, great rule of thumb. And then 25 frames per second of any video and stuff that you may be doing. That's one feature I'd love to see Studio One with, is being able to output video tracks. That in my world, that would be bloody awesome. So also under audio setup, you can see now how my inputs are configured at the moment at this song, I guess, this song project that I've got open up. I don't really need any more inputs, and it's just a stereo output. So just so you know, that's where that is. So you can click back to preferences here, and you know, this setting is non-destructive, so you can change it to how, you know, computers that can't really handle low latency, you start to get pops and clicks in stuff. Let me just unmute Peter there. And
hello world.
Hello world.
Mm.
So that's kind of, I guess, a destructive thing that can happen, and a non-destructive thing in my mind is the device block size.
Yeah,
it's you know, it's something that, well, let's say for instance you've got an interface like mine that is fairly quick. If you use low latency mode in Studio One, it doesn't matter what the device block size is.
No, I get it. So how does that relate? I think the other part of the question that I asked was, now, you know, if you're working with a computer that may have local inputs on it that you might want to add in for some reason, like your local, you know, your local head microphone and things like that. I know in Mac it's the audio MIDI thing. Obviously in Windows it's your sound properties and stuff. I always find it very useful to, if you're going to be using your computer a lot with your interface or your mixer, and it's set to 48, I always find it's advantageous to also set them at 48 as much as you can.
Yeah. So I would treat, you know, any interface, whether it be the one inside your computer or the one external, like, you know, the 68C we were talking about before and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it does, you know, 48 kilohertz, you know, I tell you one thing, most people cannot tell any difference between that and 96. Where I can tell the difference with 96 is any surround mixes. You can definitely tell the reverb and room and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of information comparatively, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So you're looking at, instead of 2 streams of audio, like stereo left and right, you're looking at up to, I don't know, 30 odd these days, which is just absolutely incredible. The other Peter just waved, so thank you for your question, PS. And we'll have PS and PP.
Just a question, Andrew.
Yep.
I'm running Windows 10, so Windows Space System. I keep the program itself on my C drive, okay, which is
Yep.
my SSD drive, but I actually store the information on another internal hard disk. Now, when I open up Studio One, basically everything's there. So I open the song up. Is that every time I touch something there, is that going back to the other drive to take the information back in, therefore slowing it down? Or does it make any difference if the whole thing's on one drive and the storage is not on a separate?
No,
Makes
it as long as Studio One knows where the folder is itself. So right back from the start when you create your session, as long as you save it in that, let's call it, I don't know, D drive, for instance.
Yep.
If you save or open the new project up onto that drive, everything usually that gets recorded in Studio One will go straight to that drive itself.
Yes, okay.
But however, if you drag, let's say, a sample from your C drive up over into Studio One and then start using that, close the session down and open it back up, it'll come up with a file missing error.
No, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So what that brings me
Not
to
a,
is
not a concern with that. No, my thing was just latency. So when Studio One opens, and let's say Studio One's on my C drive, but all of the media case, everything else is on the E drive.
yeah.
Every time I go to record onto Studio One on the C, which is on C, does that route back through the other drive?
No.
So it will take what's in the D drive, for example, and put it into the C drive where the song is, where the main
No.
program is? No.
No.
So it's going backwards and forwards between the two drives?
That's if you've got things saved separately on each one, yes.
No. Okay. So I've got Studio One program on C drive,
Yep.
but my storage, so anything I record or anything I do on Studio One is automatically stored on the D drive. So it doesn't make it slower being the program's on C, storage is on D?
No. No.
Okay.
Because it depends on the, as PS has put down there, ideally both drives should be similar spec to give best results. So in other words, it's the write and read speeds of that drive. So, you know, you say your C drive spins at, say, 72,000. You know, that's talking old hard drive speed. And your D drive only spins at, like, I don't know, 5,000. Obviously, to write to it and to copy from it, your D drive is going to be slower than your C. But for, you know, 20 odd years, I've always had my program stuff on the computer and everything else I save to an external hard drive.
Yep. Okay.
It's just the way I've always done it. That way it's out of my system and I have a backup on the cloud as well. I think we talked backup ages ago.
Yep.
But these little things are so handy. God, I've even recorded onto USB sticks and SD cards. They're way fast enough to do that kind of stuff now.
Okay.
So it's definitely the best way to go. So if anyone else... Yep, so I've got Ray asking a question here as well. Yes, Ray?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what I do, and I don't have any problems, and this is for Peter's thing, I do all my Studio One work on my main computer, which is the main C drive. But when I've completely finished with that, I download that folder from songs, which goes straight to my separate hard drive and store it in that. So I'm working on my main PC, but I'm storing all the results of that work, and I'll take that folder out of Studio One and put it in that separate drive. but it's only the song folder.
Yeah.
And that takes the cache, all the bits and pieces with it, the media, the whole lot, and puts
Correct,
shit in
yeah.
a separate drive. And that way you save a lot of room on your computer.
Yeah. So Peter's got one there that I'll unmute you again, Peter, because it's a bit relevant.
Yeah. So what I do, I'll work on the PC. So I'll save on the PC, and that's saving to the other internal drive, and then I'll actually run a save to new folder onto the SSD here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I do. The reason I asked the question, I know some people, if they're looking at buying a computer, and I think we discussed this like several years ago, that what they'll do is they'll actually have a drive specifically for music. So, okay, at the moment, for example, on my C drive, I've got the internet and I've got Word, all that sort of stuff. Programs are on there. So what I'm doing, I'm going to basically go to a whole larger SSD drive to store totally everything music only. But I was just wondering, will that make a difference to performance? Maybe
Yeah,
not.
no.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. You know, there's also me being a Mac fan, being able to order a Mac with very low space is quite easy. You can get them quite easily. But once you go up to, 512 terabyte, 2 terabyte, you're jumping up like $800, which is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And so what I normally tell people is that, if you're working with audio only, just get a laptop, the biggest and best you can afford. And if that means it's only got a 250 odd, amount of storage, as long as the programs that you're using can fit on there and save everything else onto one of these guys, happy days, because that way you don't have to worry about if your computer goes down or you sell it or give it to your kids or whatever else. It means that all of your projects are saved properly. So I was just going to show you guys quickly a setting that you can have, which goes back to Peter's question about destructive and non-destructive. This is probably maybe a destructive side of things, because if you actually lose something, you never get it back, in other words. So let me just quickly find it here, the locations. Always have this ticked. Ask to copy external files when saving a document. That way, if, let's say, you're working away on your computer and you drag a file from, like we were talking before, C drive, and the project is saved on your D drive, every time you press Command or Control S to save your project and what you're doing, Studio One will ask you to copy the files if there are any. Obviously, nothing will show up if you press save and get out and away you go. But if you so happen to use something that maybe, I don't know, you recorded on a session that's still saved on your C drive, Studio One will actually ask you to copy that into the current section. So that is a very, very handy thing to put on. So if you want to remember that, PP, that's the
I've got it.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep, and the other one on this page is your autosave. I always have my autosave enabled. I used to have it on about every minute, but I have this habit now where I just do Command S all the time. If I'm listening and I go, yeah, that sounds really good, I'm automatically pressing Command S to save it. At least this way, if you're working on something and you forget, go and make a coffee, come back down, after about 3 minutes, it will save it anyway. But going back to ask copy external files, if that is the case, it won't do anything until you come back, and that reminds you to save it anyway.
Thank you. That was quite good. Yes, it struck me that having worked with a lot of people who are setting up systems and recording and stuff, and a number of those things are fairly important. And I know I've struck a few of them in the last couple of weeks, getting these guys going. And I just thought it's worth mentioning it because people sort of may not know, and if we at least touch on, they can address it if they should need to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as mentioned, I was just about to get on to Carolyn's question, so I'm going to ask you to unmute there, Carolyn. Carolyn asks, says her husband's pretty disappointed, or very disappointed, with the sound level of the recording. Songs are loaded with guitar leads and vocals, but we include lots of other instruments, mostly like tune tracks and stuff, piano, accordion, trumpet. We get them mastered by an audio engineer. Just wondering, do we need to do better equipment, or am I missing something? I'm sure you meant to put something in there.
Yeah, I did.
Look, this is a huge, huge question. I've always had the attitude of, sorry to swear, but shit in, shit out. So in other words, if you're recording something that is not of great quality, no amount of processing in Studio One or any other DAW is going to save that basically playing. My first question to you, Carolyn, is what about the sound is he disappointed with?
Well, it's not as loud, he says, as other songs that are played on the radio. So I've done SPL meters, right?
Yeah.
And some of them, like some songs are 110 average, I think, or the highest that they hit. And others are the same as ours, which is like about 106 or 108. And it doesn't worry me because I think that they sound similar and volume doesn't really come into it for me. But my husband being the songwriter, the composer, the melody, the lyrics, everything, and the lead guitarist, lead guitarists really do like to hear themselves very loud.
Yeah.
However, I can dismiss it, but at the same time, he can't. He can't get over it. I know that what we do when we get it mastered, he basically asked for the version that was just a CD version so that it wasn't meeting Spotify or other standards. He wanted it louder, as loud as what I sent it, even louder, because the master engineer can make it sound louder and so on. But I'm not too sure if he really is making it louder, but we've asked for it to be open and not reduced to meet the 14 dB, whatever it is that Spotify require.
Oh, LUFS, yeah.
Yeah, but they all seem to come back with 14 dB. I'm pretty sure that, like, with it's not the average. Actually, the average comes up at -8, -9 dB, so it's fairly loud.
Yeah.
But the actual measurement seems to stay steady on -14 for some reason. And I don't know if that's something the master is doing, something I can deal with, and just, what sort of equipment I need. Like, I've only got a 68C, and the microphone for the vocalist is a Rode, and it's a very good one. We have a lot of trouble with latency and stuff with guitars, especially with the old computer, which is why I bought the new one. But we just use, what do you call it, electronic amps, like we don't use a real amp. We don't use real, only vocalists, trumpeters, people who play an instrument. I record that live, but everything else has got, tune tracks, the whole lot. It's all just electronic. So the sound's balanced. It sounds good to me, but he just wants to be the loudest person on the radio. Sorry, but that's what he wants.
Well, that's in the industry, they're calling it the loudness wars. And that
Yeah, I
only
know that's already. I've read masses and masses on it.
yeah,
I'd like to know how to make mine reach 110 decibels, because that's apparently what he wants.
yeah. So there's a few points here. One is, as I mentioned, this volume wars thing that started with CDs. Soon as everyone kind of went digital, things just got louder and louder and louder and louder. The second point I'd like to make is that Spotify itself, if you've uploaded, let's say, the 14 LUFS minus 14 is the standard, okay?
Yeah, I know that.
So that's a given. But what Spotify does is, if let's say you master that at minus 10 LUFS, which is louder,
yeah,
Spotify will turn it down automatically. So there's nothing you can do about that. That's what they will do.
Yeah, I understand that. So everything Spotify does comes out at 14.
Yes.
That's fine. I understand that. Well, why do some songs still sound louder on and actually measure louder on the SPL meter reading? And also, is it because, that if you use, say, a trumpet, that comes up a really high level because it's such a loud, clear, single sound. So if you have like a violin or something, and then the dips of other instruments, and then you have that, it will sound like it is louder at the point of the violin playing,
Yeah.
So it's like, do we have to make the fluctuations in what I'm recording, like turn it up, turn it down as I'm going when I'm recording these instruments? Or when
so that was my third point, which is dynamics. So what you're actually hearing is one song isn't particularly louder than the other. It has more dynamic range. So your dynamic range in your mixes must be lower than everybody else. So in other words, that's the difference.
Because it's all friggin' loud.
Yeah. Exactly right. It's what does the old joke say? Dynamics. I'm playing as loud as I possibly can. What more do you want? That's not what dynamics are. Dynamics are being able to go really slow, low, and nice and sweet and soft, and then really loud, So you've got peaks and troughs and valleys and stuff like that. So I've seen a lot of mixes and heard a lot of mixes out there that everything is just loud, pushing all the way up.
Peaks. Ours actually have peaks and troughs of softness, and that, like they're beautifully composed songs, but he wants them all to be raised to like a live level, basically.
Yeah. And my other question to you is, what are you listening on?
Well, yeah, we've got the PreSonus Era speakers, 2 of them. Comes out really loud on that.
Yeah.
But when we listen to internet radio, because they're played on, community radio, so it's all internet radio. And when you listen there, it's through the Era speakers. Yeah. And when I measure it, it's using other people's songs through the Era speakers.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, do you use reference tracks?
No, my husband does. He'll play something like, oh, this is, Santana, and it sounds a lot louder than mine, and different things like that. Yeah, but I don't actually use reference tracks.
Yeah,
because I can't record them.
So a lot of, there's one way that you can sort of sort it all out, so to speak, is to use the same monitors and play your music back through them, but also use that same computer to play Spotify back through your system. So what I'm saying is through your audio interface out of your speakers into the room.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So use a reference track to try and match the level of how your mixes sound by playing each track back and forth.
So how do I record that though?
No, well, you don't need to record it. You just need to press play on Spotify, listen to how loud it is, press stop on Spotify and start play on your track on Studio One, and then listen to how that compares to what you've just heard. And that will tell you.
Sounds louder.
Right, so
not once we load it to Spotify or the radio. Like when we load to Spotify, yeah, I know they reduce it. But when we load to radio stations, then they do some other calculation. They don't do the Spotify one, they do their own. And so each radio station seems to, like, no one's going to tell me what they do unless I've worked at a radio station, so I don't know.
Yeah, so
it's also,
it's also the same problem if you've ever watched a movie and the dialogue is someone's whispering in someone's ear and you're like, Jesus, I can't hear it, so you turn the TV up.
Yeah.
Now that is very much the same kind of problem, and there's not much you can do about it. The only thing you can do about it on your end is just turn it up.
Yeah, no, the thing is that our lyrics, every single word of the lyrics is clear. There's nothing muffled about the lyrics whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's very rare that on a song you actually can hear every single word, but because the lyrics are so important, I make sure that they're distinct. There's not one word that's missing.
Yeah.
And same with the guitar. It's just the overall thing he feels hasn't got that oomph, that like, would a studio do any better is what I'd like to know, because I'm not sure. And would other equipment do better? I mean, Zachary was talking about Studio Plus or something, whatever that is. So I don't even know what it is. I've read about it, but I'm not sure if it's software, hardware, or what.
Yeah, look, if you go into any mastering studio, proper mastering, I'm not talking about online or anything like that, they do have a ton of outboard gear that they run your track through. Some ask for stereo only, some ask for stems, which means you give them everything in a stereo separate. So in other words, drums, bass, guitars, vocals, etc.
Oh, I send stems over, yeah.
Yeah, and they run their stuff, all that through their system and back out again. But they're dealing with stuff that's mixed already. So that would depend from mixer to mixer. I might mix what you do lower because dynamically my ears might not agree with the guitars being that loud. So it's such a huge world. And believe me, Carolyn, you're not the only one that gets frustrated with this kind of stuff. Because I had a client a little while ago who said that my mixes were bad. And after, having a coffee with him and ask, more questions and why he thinks this, it turned out to be a volume thing. So it didn't mean that my mixes sucked that bad, that, he didn't want me to do anything else. What he meant was that it wasn't as loud as everybody else.
Well, Bruce just sent me a note. We only get one mastered version we use for streaming and radio.
Yeah.
Should there be two versions, which there used to be? We used to get a CD version and a streaming version, and then we just went with the CD version. Should we be getting two?
Yeah, maybe you should be getting one for streaming, so minus 14 LUFS, and then have a second one that is louder.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I think Apple Music is even lower than 14. It's like minus 18 or 16 or something. But it definitely is down to dynamic level of what you've recorded. So your next step would be maybe get better preamps. That's what you're recording into.
What's a preamp? What's
A preamp is where, you know how you plug your microphone into your audio interface?
Yeah.
So that's
No.
where the preamp is.
Well, our preamp is got to be Studio 68C because that's where
Yeah.
everything gets plugged in.
Yeah, that's right. That's where everything plugs in. But if you have a look, hang
I
on, let me
saw
just...
that. Yeah, I saw what you were showing in the
Let me see if I can
Studio
get
One,
this.
where the guy was asking why it didn't, why he had sound yesterday, not today. And I see that he's got like the Studio One Live with the 58 million, you know, dials and colours and numbers. And I know I don't have that, and I probably don't have enough fingers to deal with that.
Yeah, that's right. See if I can get this stupid camera to work. So if you have a look on the screen now, that rack unit I've got is by a company called Audient, which I absolutely love. At the bottom,
Is that a preamp?
There's two channel strips. So this has got 8 Audient preamps in it. They're not on the front or anything. The only thing on the front is the DI, so I can plug a guitar straight in. But they give me a different flavour and more headroom, a bit like an old desk would give me. Over here, there's my quantum interface, and that's my normal preamp plugins that I use for clean stuff. I always find, you know, PreSonus are great for clean,
Yeah, that's right.
pristine sounding kind of preamps.
He does not like that sound.
Where
We've
this
got
unit...
Bias and Electrum because he's not happy with their amps either, but, you know.
Yeah. So I'm trying to do this while I'm talking to you. You'll notice this little guy here, it's gone off again, hasn't it?
Just for the minute, yeah.
Yeah, so just let me grab this back on again. Something wrong with this cable, obviously. Come back! So let me hold the cable, because I'm trying to do it all at once here. I just want to show you...
Don't mind me, I'm fine.
Yeah. So, hang on, where am I? There we go. So you can see channels 3 to 8 are just normal preamp channels of their desk preamps. But if you have a look at channels 1 and 2 here, I will show you number 1 because it's exactly the same as number 2. See, I've got some options there of being able to add different types of transformers and, you know, different, I guess, coloration of what I need. Normally when I'm recording drums, being a drummer, I have my kick drum in channel 1 and snare in channel 2. And I'm telling you, it's a lot noisier, you would think, but it gives you some nice kind of character to the sound. So maybe that's what your husband's missing.
Right. So
you know,
what's
maybe
the brand
maybe
of
it's that's
Andrew?
called Audient. So this unit is actually plugged in via the ADAT line out to the ADAT line in into my PreSonus audio interface.
I don't know if I've got one of those.
I don't think the 68C... Peter Scott, would you be able to check for me, please, if the 68C has actually got... I don't think it has ADAT, unfortunately.
So have to get another box as well.
Yeah, look, it's a hardware thing. Yeah, so I was going to explain to you that Studio One Plus, that is just an account with with PreSonus that allows you to have everything that they make software-wise. You're not getting a better version. Do you use Professional Studio One at the moment?
No, I just use Artist.
See, that's fine. You're not, the only thing with Professional is you're getting more tracks to record on and a few extra bits and pieces. You're not getting, you know, what you're doing is fine. So, you know, software-wise, it doesn't matter if you use Pro Tools. Don't let anybody tell you that Pro Tools sounds better than any other DAW because that's just absolute bullshit.
No, I'll never use it again. That's how I learned. I don't like it.
Yeah. Peter Scott and I have been working through some issues of a client of his that's got Pro Tools, and we'll get there. But, you know, it's not software. Nothing you can do to audio is, you know, plugins, obviously. But, you know, even if you change to Logic, your problem or, you know, your issue that you're trying to work through isn't going to disappear just because you've used a different DAW. What I believe it is the dynamic level of what you're recording and how you're recording it and the mix itself. Because, you know, as I mentioned before, you're not the only one that goes through this kind of stuff. It's pretty common, that issue that you're going through. And I, you know, because it's been around for so long, I've kind of forgotten about it. I don't really care. If my mix is 2 dB softer than everybody else, I don't care. You know, if you want a, I guess, a hotter sound, as I keep telling other people, is if you want it louder, just turn it up.
It's pretty much at the highest volume, I think.
Yeah. I would be interested in, I don't know whether your husband would, but would you be interested in sending me a mix that you've done and I can just check out exactly, you know, levels, and I could do a master for free for you and just see if I make any difference?
We've had everything we've ever done mastered so far. I've got a few in the pipeline, so they're not ready. As soon as they're ready, I send it to master.
Right.
But I can send you one that I've already had mastered if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. So what I'll do is, my email address is in the chat. I'm just putting it in there now.
Yeah, okay.
So it's Andrew. Oh, hang on. I'll just give you my normal email address. So Andrew Hazard at me.com. Oops, I sent that to Zach. Just ignore that, Zach. Let me send it to you. He's probably laughing his head off right now.
I'll appreciate if you do that. That would be interesting. I play around with those things called, I don't know what they're called, you know, I forget their names. I'm not an engineer by any means. You know, where you measure the signals and you see that they're even and balanced, and the dynamic thingies, I load them on, but I really don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing to make that, you know, better or changed or more dynamic. But all I do, I look at the wave patterns, and if the wave patterns look good to me, I'm happy with it, you know. So I look at a dynamic wave pattern to make sure it's sort of balanced when I look at it.
Yeah, so the other thing that I would probably mention is that, you know, the room that you're creating in, if it's untreated, your SBL levels, sound pressure levels and stuff between songs aren't going to really be accurate, because different sounds react differently in rooms that are untreated. If you've got a treated room, that's a different story, because everything gets cancelled out. But if it's untreated, because that's my first question to anyone that says, my speakers don't sound the best, what can I do, you know, to make them sound better?
My speakers sound absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's just when it comes on the radio, it's just not that great. It's down a notch from what my recording is.
See, to me, if I was listening to the radio, I'd send a song in and I listened to it and it was way quieter than the song before. That's up to the radio station to level those levels out. You know, so someone's not doing their job at the radio station by bringing up the level of that song compared to the last one, because that's part of his job. It's the same as me doing a PA. So let's say I've got two artists. The first singer's coming on, he's using backing tracks, and the second's the same. She's using backing tracks. I can bet you my bloody house that one track is going to be really loud and the ladies track, the next singer, is going to be really soft. So it's my job when they come on is to level that out so that, let's say, singer 1 comes in and his is really loud. Singer 2 comes on, I'm going to have to match that if hers is low. So I've got to bring that up into there. So really, Spotify not so much because, you know, no one can change the level but you. But radio stations, someone isn't doing their job.
Okay, that's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah. So, you know, you kind of take it back to who's playing what. If your speakers are at the same level and one song sounds louder than the other, that's coming from the radio station, not from the song itself.
Okay. That's a bit reassuring. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's why I'd love to, you know, send me something. I don't really mind what it is. And I'll just check out my loudness system here and just see what it says to me. If it's a little bit quiet, I'll let you know.
Will do. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks for the question.
Do you want stems or an MP3 or what? How do you want it?
Just an MP3 is fine. That'll you know, transfer easy and we can just get straight away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Ray wants to ask a question. Young Ray.
Well, just on Caroline's point, a lot of my stuff goes to Spotify. Well, I'm a bit annoyed with them. They don't pay much. But secondly is my stuff always seems to come out all right on Spotify, but when it goes to the local radio station or anywhere else, it does come a bit quieter. And what I do with my guitar playing, because I play a lot of instrumental stuff, with my guitar playing, that is a bit louder than what the drummer would like. But also the other instruments that you use, you might use piano or I've got the S1 Professional, so or the old Sphere, whatever you call it. So I get all the plugins and all the instruments I want to play on my keyboard. So some of those instruments do come up pretty louder and can drown out. The other issue is too, is you've got to be careful of your clipping when you're mixing. If you've got instruments that, particularly with higher notes, they're more likely to cause clipping if you go too loud. So you're restricted on balancing your, or I do anyway, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I sort of balance out when I mix on the volumes of each track. So I might have the pianos and I might put a bit of reverb on the pianos a little bit, or get a preset with a bit of EQ and fat channel stuff. But then I'll have to adjust the volume to match whatever I'm playing to keep a good balance. And it comes back, like you said, the dynamics of where you want a quieter note, where you want a louder note. You know, if you want the tom-toms to come in, then you just up it a little bit if you want a bit of Phil Collins stuff in there.
Yeah. Another thing I just thought of, Carolyn, too, a lot of processing can be done by the radio stations. Community radio don't do a lot of processing and a lot of leveling. I find a lot of the community radio stations don't have people there that actually bother too much about leveling. They just throw the tracks into a computer and the DJs just play them. So you will get a fair bit of up and down. And no, as Andrew knows, no two albums are the same loudness, let alone the tracks between them. Very hard to get that sort of, really exact. The other thing is when you compare radio stations, you listen to what comes out of, say, Triple M, and they very heavily process all their content. It sounds really big and really fat because they use a whole lot of hard limiting. So it limits the dynamic range a lot more, but then the low and the high and the loud and the soft bits are much closer together. So the whole tracks sound bigger and fatter and that sort of thing. And And if you're comparing those to what you're listening to, yeah, they will sound completely different.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
So
Yeah,
there
that's tough.
seems to be a a running theme here. It's the radio stations.
Well, it is.
Back
And
in the old days, the radio stations, as far as leveling was concerned, they used to have. That's why the LA2A, the compressor. I don't know any of you guys have heard of. That was from radio stations. So what that limiter would do would, if there was a hot track come in, that limiter would grab that and push it back down to where it needs to be. Same with anything lower in dynamics. Anything that's softer, that limiter will grab that sound and bring it up and level it out. And as Peter said, there's a lot of radio stations, especially community, which is understandable. They don't have the proper people to pay anybody to sit there and level them out.
Yeah.
And it even goes back to what Peter Piddington was saying about his backing tracks and stuff too. What he's essentially doing is changing the levels of each and one of his backing tracks to make sure that they're up to where they need to be for him to perform that song live. If he just left the levels the way they were, people are going to notice that, the backing tracks are going up and down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thanks, Carol. And that's I could actually sit here and talk
there.
about this for about 3 hours because, another thing that I don't really mean to be rude here, so don't take it this way, but there's a lot of guitarists out there, especially older guitarists. When I do PA, they want their amps so fucking loud that all you can hear coming off the stage is a guitar amp. And they will not turn it down because that's the level they like to hear. And unfortunately, it's because they're older, they've been playing live longer, and they've got their hearing's gone.
Yeah.
That's just human nature. As we get older, things start to fail. But
I can't argue with an SPL meter.
That's right.
and it really was softer than the song that won that night.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but it's something that people don't take in mind. Same with anything video. If someone wears glasses, they're going to see that video differently to, a 19-year-old who's watching, 16K footage and can notice every little detail. It's not good for us. 1080 is fine. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Carolyn. That's definitely a big one.
A lot to go on with.
Yeah. So Zach had a question as well that he submitted late this afternoon. If anyone needs to go, please let me know. We probably won't go much further than another 10 or 15 minutes. But these questions are quite cool to go through. Zach is asking how he'd like to know how to pick up work on Studio One. So I think what Zach is asking is maybe doing some mixing jobs and, getting work using Studio One to either record or mix or master, or even, being a song page editor. I can see in the future that could be something. Someone like Peter Piddington, for instance, who doesn't have time to, make his set lists up. If someone could sit there and put them up, there could be some of that stuff in the future. The more usable that the show page becomes. Remember, it's in its infancy at the moment. But yeah, that's a tough one, Zach, because at the moment, as Carolyn probably knows too, there are thousands of audio mixers, audio and mastering engineers all out there competing for work. So my thoughts on that is I think it'd be best to start locally. I know it's a little bit harder for you, but get out there and see artists and bands live in your own little area there, and just talk to them, reach out to them and find out if they need any help making or recording or releasing their music, that kind of stuff. And also, to get started and get your name out there, basically offer to do a mix for a band that you see for free. What that enables you to do is start collecting material that you could have, you know, a few mixes that you've done for free, and you can build your own little library of demos that you can play people. So the first thing that comes out of anyone's mind is, well, what have you done? What can I listen to? So once you start building that kind of stuff up, then you start to build a name for yourself and get it out there. So I reckon this is probably an open discussion kind of question. I don't know whether anyone else out there has got any other suggestions, but that would be mine. And look, to be completely honest, Zach, that's how I got started. I got interested in recording music years ago by being in studios and asking bands if they needed a drummer, because I was interested in being a studio musician. That's how I first started. And what that did for me was it gave me an in locally to get started on stuff. And I did exactly the same process when I moved to Queensland. I just looked all in my local area, started talking to people, chatting to people, and now I'm doing PA recording and stuff jobs for anywhere in between Byron Bay and, you know, Sunshine Coast. So start local, get out there and see bands, get out there amongst it, and don't be afraid to talk to people and find out what they need. You know, even go to one of their rehearsals and say, look, for free, I'll come out and just maybe do a quick multi-track recording of a few songs and take them home, mix them, and just see what happens. They might like what you do. And if they do, as you know, one will tell a friend, and then that friend will tell another friend, and then on it goes. So I hope that helps. Peter's asking here, I'll unmute you there, mate.
No, I was just going to say I get quite a bit from open mics because I'm mixing and stuff there at the open mic side of it. And you get people there and you go, oh, you know, have you got a demo? You need a demo to get out there and chase work and stuff like that. It's always a good thing.
Yeah. So yeah, even open mics, like you say, they're great things to go to meet people and find out what's going on. And look, I can almost guarantee you, Zach, that there'll be a singer, songwriter, or someone with just a guitar having a sing, who would love you to just come out and record the acoustic guitar and their voice, take it home and mix it to the best that you can, and send it to them and just, you know, say, here you go, this is what I've done. Please let me know later on if you'd like any more recordings. You know, it's one of those things that, as I said before, is that there's just so many people out there. There's a website called Fiverr. I don't know if anyone else has heard that. There's quite a few of them. Oh yeah, Carolyn's heard. You know, there are people on there charging $8 to do a mix. For someone like me who's trying to make a living out of this stuff, I can't compete with that. Same with drum tracks. I started doing drum tracks quite a few years ago. And then when these kind of websites came out where people are just doing stuff for absolutely nothing, I can't compete with that. Some guys are doing tracks for $5 each. And to be honest, most of them are just using bloody Superior Drummer and programming them and sending them back. Yes, Carolyn?
And just on that, I think that a lot of them are using AI, and I don't know that that sort of interests Zachary, but I think that if you got on that side of things, it could be really useful. Fiverr is very good. That's where we found our master person. He wasn't very expensive to begin with. He is now.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so the thing is too, with AI, like I looked at a video pre-Sonus, Gregor talking about how you can get loops and then you can go sort through and pick the loops using AI of exactly what sound you want and all this. I love that sort of the thought of that, but I'm not really ever going to be able to understand how to do that. And if somebody like you could say, I can work through this stuff and help you get these really good music loops and good drop beats and whatever, I'd be looking at that for me. Maybe not for Bruce's music at the moment.
No, yeah.
He would be a bit annoyed. But yeah, like anything to do with that stuff you can do and get you involved in stuff that you enjoy. I think the main thing is whatever music you enjoy and what part of the recording you enjoy, concentrate on that, Zachary.
Yeah, that's very, very good advice, because that's, you know, I know definitely that to mix music that you're not really into, that is a job and a half, because you're not into it, you don't think it ever sounds right. You know, it makes that kind of work very unpleasurable. But even though, you know, some jobs you have to kind of force your way through because that's what you do. But definitely doing a genre of music that you love, I'd love to be able to sit here and just mix, you know, guitar-oriented rock all day. I could do that all day. But yeah, Zach, if, you know, take some of that advice, I would definitely start local if you've got some open mics and stuff. I have a feeling from our discussions before that you're really more into the mixing side of things. So maybe if you can, you know, Peter Scott and I are PA guys. And so maybe see if you can liaise with some AV professionals in your area that might be able to say, well, look, you know, for $50 or whatever, I can get you recording off the desk, and the band would, you know, probably appreciate if you could do a mix for them of the live stuff. I tell you what, if you're going to be mixing, if you haven't mixed live yet, I would definitely start getting into that, because mixing live teaches you a ton about mixing in the studio. Absolutely. So I think you do audio and stuff at church. Maybe ask those guys. Maybe if they've got something that you can take home to mix for them, or offer to record, if they've got the gear, to record each session that you do, and, you know, make that a service that you provide for them, and that will. I always say work begets work. So keep yourself busy, offer some stuff, and other work will come in because of it. All right, guys, we've got one more question to get through. If anyone else has got anything else they'd like to do. This one comes again from Peter Scott. He's been asked about setting up a template for a situation where musicians can send, say, a track to another, and the second can record their part, then export it back to the first so that the tracks can be synced easily and be in time. You know, something like that, collaboration-wise, I struggled for years. I don't know if anyone else has tried to collaborate with, you know, other bands and stuff as far as studio things are concerned. It can be a nightmare, especially with the timing side of things. Most people don't export from start to finish of the song, for instance. So if you've only recorded a solo, you know, the song's this long, but the solo's only this long, and they send it to you, where the heck do you put it in line to be timing-wise? Really, I think, Peter, I'll unmute you here. I might be on the wrong track, but I think the best way to collaborate in this way is using the tools in Studio One that we've already got, which is the Collaborate tools. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen again, and I'll show you where these are. Up in the File menu here, you've got now Collaboration tab.
The only problem I can see with this is this particular client is back on Studio One 4.
Aha. So that's the only thing that holds my answer back.
Yeah, I mentioned it before you go too far down the track. But carry on. It's just valid anyway. Carry on.
So yeah, look, I was just going to say, in the newer versions of Studio One anyway, Under the drop-down file menu, you'll find this collaboration drop-down, which, as you can see on the screen there, where you can send and receive or sync the project and updated files with a shared project. So you could also share ideas on Studio One song template, where each collaborator could just download the files on their end, add their parts, where everybody can just keep an updated project on their system. So in other words, just quickly, as you can see, the collaboration menu there, you can join a collaboration or you can share it. So in other words, that if someone's asked for it, you can share that via email, etc. And bear in mind, you don't have to be, you just have to make a free account at presonus.com to be able to use this feature. So I'm talking about the client or the people you're working with. So they don't need Studio One.
You don't need Studio One Plus or anything?
No.
Okay.
No. So as far as I understand it, you don't.
Okay, so someone with artists would be able to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So you've also got, once you're joined in and things are going, let's say this session here I've got open, I wanted to add something else to this, maybe some more vocals in the chorus, for instance. Once I'm finished recording, I would then press send. So what that would do was it'd take a snapshot of the project, wherever it's saved on your hard drive, send that to Presonus Workspace, where then the person who is looking at it can play my session back and it will download the files they need to listen to what I've done. So not all files will be copied.
Right.
Initially they will, because obviously you need, you know, the drums and the bass and whatever else. And also on their end, they would press receive. So that means that anything new, by the way, that other person gets locked out once you're pressing receive. So there's a redundancy there that says, okay, if someone's pressed receive, but I'm still recording, next time that they press receive, that would happen. So once they're finished recording, the new file would update and bang, it'll be up in your system. And obviously unlink. So you can unlink that native or that local saved project will stay on your system. Once it's unlinked, it means any changes to their end won't come through.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, I guess you could, however, set up your own file server where you could keep a communal folder. Yeah. But that would mean that you'd have to, you know, bounce everything down from start to finish so that the timing is right.
Well, well, at the moment, these guys have basically, they've got a guitar player who's basically written a number of songs for their album. They've got a drummer who's working on all the drum tracks for these songs. So the bass player needs to sort of have a couple of goes at his bass part until he gets something he's happy with. So what we at the moment, because they're only on there's two issues. Firstly, the bass player's running Studio One version 4, which is what came with his RM32 mixer. And all that's operating as expected, and that's fine. The other guy is, I think, running Logic. So basically, what we've done is we've set up a Google Drive that they both share content on, and basically he just when he's created a mix down, he will name it, whatever it is, the song, and this the bass part number, whatever take it is that he's decided to send him. He'll throw that into the Google Drive. The other guy will then see that he's sent him a copy of that. He'll drag it out, put it into with his existing track that he's got, and have a listen to it and see how it sits and all that sort of stuff. And that seems to be working. Obviously, a later version will give them all this other stuff, but at the moment, it's early days, and they're I think they can deal with that without too much problem. The guitar player is pretty pretty savvy with the the file sharing and moving around and stuff. So I think it'll work. But it's definitely that collaboration thing in Share One is very, very cool. That's I haven't even looked at that myself. So
yeah,
that'll be a good thing.
Just for the room, what I'll do is I'll just quickly go through because it's relevant to your question, and so other people may not understand that once you're sending and you want to send a file to someone, let's use the guitar solo scenario, where, as you can see, this song starts here and ends here where the loop brackets are at the moment. So obviously, if I bounce my solo down, which is this part here, pretend, it's only, what is that, 8 bars long?
Yep.
Okay? That means that if I bounce that down and send that to my collaborators, they're not going to be able to know where the heck that needs to go. I could have done that solo over the chorus.
Yep.
So what I suggest for people, if they haven't done this before, if they're going to send it to someone, make sure you send a version. Don't just bounce the file. In other words, right-click like this.
No.
And go to audio and then, I can't even find where it is. It's under event. Yeah, bounce. What you want to do is you don't want to bounce the selection or even mix down the selection. What you want to do is go and mix down the whole thing.
Yep.
But just simply solo that particular track that you want to send them, like that.
Yep.
Okay? And then do your export as normal. Command E or Control E for export, and then just name that like solo or new at the end of it.
Yep.
And then that loop range here, or if you've got your markers set, you can have the song start and end. So you would mix that whole thing down, and then it would become a track from start to finish. Maybe I should just do it. Let's just see if I can do it.
Yeah.
We need 48K because it's going to come in that way. But what I want it to do is I want it to import to a track. Okay, so let's do it and see what happens. I've got other things soloed here as well. Why is that? Oh, because they're all looped for the same thing.
Do they relate to that track?
Yeah. All right, so while this is doing, it's going to take a while. What is it? 4.5 times faster than real time. Well, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Is that what you're sort of talking about?
Well, yeah, I took the approach that, let's get the start and end markers in early in the piece.
Yep.
And the good thing about it is the guitar player who sent the original of the guitar part has done that very thing. He's gone from the start to the finish of the song as one file. So we've dragged that into Studio One. That's fine. It all plays fine. So when we do the bass part, although the bass may not play at the first part of it, when it records from the start, and then he comes in at the appropriate place and what have you, and the file finishes at the appropriate end of the track. So he gets a complete file of the bass where the bass actually plays. So
for people in the room, it's actually done that. So as you can see, this is a whole new file now from start to finish, but right in the middle where my guitar solo is meant to be. Me do guitar solos. Funny.
I want to hear it.
Yeah, that would mean that comes in the right place.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's a trap. Yeah, just the little bits like that, if you don't put it in context, you've got no idea where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only danger with that sort of thing. I get that. That's very much an important thing to do. No, that's cool. No, that's it. Yeah. Well, at the moment, I think we've got a method, and to say, if they upgrade down the track, then they can start using these other tools and stuff, and that'll make it easier. But
I suspect at the moment they're really enjoying learning it and learning the
Nice.
method. So let's see how they go. And I think having a simpler version of Studio One isn't a bad thing to start off with, because when you get proficient at it, when you add a later version, you'll have lots more things to play with, but it'll still be essentially the same workflow.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're swapping files that people have done and recorded already, all you need to do then is just share the project file itself from Studio One if they're using Studio One. As long as you can point it to the files that you've saved on your hard drive, wherever that may be, the session will open up without any problems. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Well, at this point, it's really part of the, getting the parts just. I think they're going to, ultimately, once they've worked out, how they're going to play them and what each of the parts are, I think this for them is going to be part of the getting their parts right, so that they'll go to a studio and say, okay, we need to do 4 tracks for an EP. We've got the songs ready. We're ready to play. Give us a day and we'll just knock them out and what have you. So, I mean, it's going to save them a fortune, in studio time. But they'll get a good studio. They're in San Diego, so
nice.
Plenty of studios there. It was funny. We're working with them online this afternoon, and JD says to me, he says, "Oh, they've just sent a rocket." I was going, "I beg your pardon?" And he said, "I'm only 6 miles from the Air Force Base where they launched old mate's rockets, Mr. SpaceX."
Oh,
yeah!
Wow!
And he said, "I moved here 20 years ago, and the first time I heard it, I thought it was an earthquake, because," he said, "my house in LA got totaled." And I said, "Oh, you poor bugger." He said, "Well, I thought it was another bloody earthquake, so I hurtled outside, and no one else was in the street." I'm going, "What the hell's going on?" And then I looked up in the sky, and here's this rocket hurtling up into space.
Wow!
And he said, "That's a regular thing." Yeah.
That's
so,
nuts.
Yeah, that's funny. I said, "Well, lucky there weren't any live mics we were recording, because that would probably come through." He said, "Yeah." Well, he said we were direct off the base, so it didn't matter. But he said, "Yeah, something we've got to be, a bit conscious of if we're going to record any vocals here."
Well, now I know who to call if I want any rocket sound effects. I'll just get him to rock down there and record.
Yeah. Stick a microphone out the window, and here it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we might wrap
Thanks
it up
for that.
here, guys. We've got, we've been here a couple hours now, which I don't mind, but, people want to get to bed. It's only 7 here when we start, so a little bit later for you guys. Thank you, Zachary. Yeah. Thanks, Ray, for coming in. PP. Thanks, Carolyn, for your awesome question. I hope to hear something from you very soon. You got my email address, I take it. Thank you for coming, and keep those questions coming. I think this kind of format has worked well, so that we're not sitting here talking about nothing. So it's probably a lot better. I've made some Zoom settings and stuff that hopefully I can edit some of this stuff off. If not, I'm going to have to try and get a way to record my cameras directly and all sorts of stuff. But let's see how we go with this. And I will see you all next time.